Cool. I want to paint more. Before the new year, I was really struggling. I was taking my business day by day and completing tasks that I made the morning of. I didn't really have a plan, and the biggest thing I was struggling with was finding my style. Right before the new year, I realized that finding my style was going to be a process. So why not have fun with it and get inspired? The frame that we're making today was inspired by this book that I talked in depth about in my last video. The author fully intended for the book to be about flower arranging, but it evolved into something more and more personal. So it seemed fitting as a starting point for me too. I had the idea of arranging flowers in a vase, but a 2D version, using pressed flowers instead of fresh flowers. The goal was to create a rustic farmhouse frame, so think light tones, woody, and very textured. I have this frame that I found at the thrift store, and I love the proportions of it, but I wasn't too fond of the color, so I spray painted it white. Then I didn't love that color either, so I just left it as a work in progress. Next, I'm starting my creative process where I usually start it, which is on Pinterest. I'm looking for some vase shapes that will work well in the frame that I have. And I found this one, so I'm popping it into Illustrator and resizing it to fit my frame. Printing it and then actually putting it into my frame, just to see if I like the size. It took me 2 times to finally get it right. I'm cutting my printout so I can use it as a stencil on my good paper. Then I'm cutting that out. While we're here, I'm going to cut out my background piece as well. I'm just making sure it's the same size as the frame and cutting it out. I'm putting some elements together to see how they're looking. Everything looks good so far, so I'm busting out my trusty painting box. I'm going to be using these old brushes I squished into my supply box, this box of watercolors that I bought in Korea, and some acrylic paint. The plan is to have the background a neutral and textured gray, and that's as far as the plan goes. I wanted to be a little more free-spirited with this technique, so it's a lot of trying new things and trusting myself. For the vase, I want a lot of texture, so I'm mixing baking soda with my white acrylic paint. I just eyeballed the proportions of ingredients and went to town. I have to work really quickly with this mixture because it does dry very quickly. This was my first time making that mixture, and the results were chef's kiss. I'm putting everything together just to see how it's working, and I'm not liking how clean the frame looks. So I'm gonna sand it down to expose some of the wood underneath. The vision was to have the vase sandwiched between the glass and acrylic. So I cut the acrylic correctly, but I'm definitely not positioning it correctly in the frame. But it's okay. Life continues to teach me to let it go. And then the tedious process of gluing everything down and finding the perfect Spotify playlist begins. Since the stems are thick, I'm using foam tape to secure the vase. It'll help give it some height away from the piece of acrylic and give some more space for the stems. I'm also being very generous with the glue because I don't want to send a frame out and have things fall apart. I'm finally assembling the whole frame together. I also struggled for a few extra minutes to get the backing to fit, but at last it is complete. I'm really proud of this frame, and I'm glad I was finally able to bring this idea to life. I will be listing this frame on my Etsy if you are interested. If you are using this and following my tutorial to make your own frame, please tag me on Instagram so I can see. And until next time, take care. Bye.
I don't usually cry at all, but wow, is it all